Okay, day 2, episode 2. So in front of me on my left I have the, where's my fuzzy pen? Here we go. I have my Raspberry Pi 3. I have my PlayStation 3 controller. I have my original OG Game Boy. And I have my Raspberry Pi original OG, let's call it that. It's in a little plastic case which basically is as a dummy for the backpack, the screen backpack that I'm going to get, hopefully in a couple of days. So, with that in mind, I went to the thrift store and I got these little beauties. Now, to the right of the Game Boy is a Dreamcast controller. Now, I will show you why I bought that in a couple of seconds. Next to that is a PlayStation 2 controller, which as you can see is pretty similar size, shape and functionality wise to the PS3 controller. That's why I got it, just to start off with. I mean, later on, if I learn a bit more about technology and stuff like that, I might change the control scheme, but for now I'm just going to stick to the DualShock setup, both in terms of what it looks like inside and out. Also for the fact that I don't think it works, so when I get my new toy, which is my rotary cutter, I can take it to bits and not have a worry. Below that is an OG Nintendo DS. Now I got this as a kind of direct comparison to how big the Raspberry Pi and backpack is. At the moment I'm toying with two ideas. One is called Little Sister, which is basically, because the Raspberry Pi 3 that Elusive Steve got me is basically pretty much set up. The emulator, well, the second part of this video will do a test of, I don't know, however many games I feel like doing. I've done a couple already off camera, and I'll do a few more. But the main reason I got the DS is to see what it's like inside. You know, it's the buttons and the D-pad are pretty small, so the emulator runs everything up to and including Super Nintendo, N64 and PlayStation games. So my initial idea was to do one portable console that ran Super Nintendo games. That was more to do with the button layout, how many buttons there were. So the Dreamcast controller is probably set up as it is: 4 face buttons, 2 shoulder buttons and a direction pad. Whereas Nintendo 64 and PlayStation games might be a bit more tricky. They require, well, N64 requires 1 joystick. The setup on the N64 pad, I don't want to go into it too much now because that will go into a playtest later. But PlayStation games, a couple of games that I've tested run pretty well. So without further ado, I'll go into why I chose a Dreamcast controller. Now it doesn't come up on the camera so much, but the Dreamcast controller is pretty old. Obviously, it was the misunderstood darling, considering what happened with the Sega 32X and then the Saturn, and the Dreamcast got a bit of a rough deal of it. There were some amazing games on it though. I never had one, but I know that there are some amazing games on it. Res, of which came out on the PS2 as well, which I absolutely adore, which is coming out as an HD re-release and a VR game as well, so look forward to that in October. Please get it, it's amazing. On the right, yeah, as I said, is the OG Raspberry Pi. To give it some kind of dimension, I've put a meshy box underneath it, which will hopefully represent the size and shape of the kind of cartridge unit that I want to make, which will have the 3.5 inch screen on top. So hopefully, eventually, this will become fully detachable and sit next to the TV and just have a power supply, a HDMI cable, and the actual pad itself plugged in. Eventually, hopefully, won't even need that. Hopefully, it will be Bluetooth in the end, but we'll see. So here is why I chose the Dreamcast controller. So as you can see, the top back whichever one you want to call it, of the Dreamcast controller had two spaces, one for a memory unit and one for the name escapes me, but it had a little like dot matrix display, which is why why there is a little kind of window on the front. So it immediately dawned on me that maybe I could split the Dreamcast controller in two, widen it slightly, and hopefully have this go in the middle. I'm trying to minimize my modification of a physical controller, so that's why I chose the Dreamcast controller, and it's quite ergonomic actually. If all I'm going to do is try the little sister idea, which is basically up to Super Nintendo. As I said, the Super Nintendo has 4 face buttons and 2 shoulder buttons, so could work. It could work. I'm looking forward to trying it, put it that way. In terms of the actual size, again, I think it could work. As a portable, as I said, the little cartridge unit would come out, or go in, rather, and the screen would be somewhere in the middle. I'm going to try it and see what happens. So imagine that the joystick is not actually there. Imagine it's more in line with the DualShock, which would probably be either side of the start button. As you saw in the previous clip, the shoulder buttons for the little sister version, there would be only 2. For the Big Brother, which again is a completely different can of worms, that they would obviously be 2 shoulder buttons. And finally, as the last comparison is the size of the Pi compared to the top screen of the original OG DS. It's a reasonable size. I actually am surprised at how big it is. If it all goes well and I can run N64 and PlayStation games to my satisfaction, I might just stick to one unit. I also have the idea of using a 5-inch screen as well for N64 and PlayStation games, but that project is called the Big Brother project, which obviously could be a little bit down the road. So far, I'm quite satisfied with my finds. I thought the Dreamcast controller, especially with the idea of sticking the unit in the back and taking it out to go into the home console kind of dock, which again is a bit further down the line, initially is a good start. So I think for now I'm going to wait for my new toy to arrive so I can start hacking this controller to bits and see what's inside it, because I've always wanted to do that. Who doesn't? Let's be honest. And I'll do a little playtest of a few games for you. How's that?